On Vaticano this week, we follow the Pope on his trip through Ecuador, Bolivia and Paraguay. We retrace his adventurous trip through 3 countries of the South American continent. A new laser system is given to the Vatican. All this, plus a documentary on the Inquisition. This and more, now on Vaticano.
Ecuador, Bolivia, Paraguay. That was the itinerary of Pope Francis for his visit to Latin America. On Sunday, July 5th, he landed in Ecuador, where he was warmly greeted. After he took Monday off to rest from his 13-hour trip, the Pope visited the President of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, who had previously received him at the airport. In the President's residence, the Pope was led around everywhere and was greeted with smiles and joy. He was presented to the President's family and political officials. Afterwards, he was led to the Basilica of Quito, the capital of Ecuador. The large edifice is located in Quito's historic center and is the largest neo-Gothic basilica in the Americas. The Pope visited a statue of Our Lady and left a rosary he had blessed. The whole time he was escorted by the Archbishop of Quito, Fausto Gabriel Chavez. He remained a brief moment in prayer in front of the Most Holy Sacrament, then exited the basilica to give the crowd a blessing.
And may the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit descend upon you and remain with you always. And please, I ask you to pray for me. Good night, and see you tomorrow.
The following day saw the solemn celebration of a Mass at the Los Semanes Park of Guayaquil.
The family is the nearest hospital. When a family member is ill, it is in the home that they are cared for as long as possible. The family is the first school for the young and the best home for the elderly. The family constitutes the best social capital. It cannot be replaced by other institutions. It needs to be helped and strengthened, lest we lose our proper sense of the services which society as a whole provides. Those services which society offers to its citizens are not a type of alms, but rather a genuine social debt with respect to the institution of the family, which is foundational and which contributes to the common good. The family is also a small church, called a domestic church, which, along with life, also mediates God's tenderness and mercy.
La llamamos iglesia doméstica, que junto con la vida encausa la ternura y la misericordia divina.
Pope Francis arrived at the Catholic University of Ecuador in his Pope Mobile. He met with educators and students of the Pontifical Catholic University of Ecuador in Quito. The encounter took place outside to accommodate the crowds of people who wanted to participate. After some questions, Pope Francis gave his speech, answering them and focusing on the unity of the understanding of the world.
Personal initiatives are always necessary and good, but we are asked to go one step further, to start viewing reality in an organic and not fragmented way, to ask about where we stand in relation to others, inasmuch as everything is interconnected. There is no right to exclusion. As a university, as educational institutions, as teachers and students, life itself challenges us to answer these 2 questions. What does this world need us for? Where is your brother?
Pope Francis closed the meeting with a united prayer to the Virgin Mary.
Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros pecadores.
Francis then continued to one of the most beautiful churches in Latin America, the Church of the Society of Jesus, or simply of the Society. The church is a Baroque glory with profuse gold leaf and gilded ornament and wood carvings, and is based on the Jesuit church in Rome. Before the private visit to this temple, Pope Francis greeted political, economic and civil leaders at San Francisco Church in Quito and told them that the church wants to collaborate with them.
The church wishes, for her part, to cooperate in the pursuit of the common good through her social and educational works, promoting ethical and spiritual values, and serving as a prophetic sign which brings a ray of light and hope to all, especially those most in need.
He continued to the National Marian Shrine of El Quinche. The Pope entered with a bouquet of flowers for the Virgin Mary and was greeted by an effusive crowd who wanted to get a glimpse of him or even just touch him. In the shrine, there is a miraculous statue of the Virgin of El Quinche, a cedar wood statue carved in 1586 by the famous sculptor Diego de Robles. Beginning with a prayer to Mary, he bid the Virgin Mary salutations, as the faithful applauded. The Holy Father did not deliver his prepared remarks, choosing instead to speak off the cuff and from the heart about service.
Primero, el servicio.
First, service. God chose me. I was pulled to do what? To serve. And is that unique to me? No, I have my time. I have my things. I have this. No, I have to close the office. I should go to bless the houses, but I'm tired. Today, there's a cute soap opera on television for the nuns. So, service. To serve. To serve and don't do other things. Let us serve when we are tired, and let us serve too when we cannot stand the people.
Y servir cuando estamos cansados. Y servir cuando la gente nos harta.
The sanctuary of El Quinche was built in 1928 and was proclaimed the National Marian Sanctuary in 1985. At the end of the celebration, after the blessing, the Pope received a miniature of the sanctuary. As last stop of the evening before his departure to the next country, Bolivia, Pope Francis visited a home for the elderly run by the Missionaries of Charity. This religious congregation was founded by Mother Teresa, and its members are easily recognizable by their white and blue habits. They take the vows of poverty, chastity and obedience like every congregation, but also a fourth vow, to serve the poorest of the poor. Therefore, they are representatives of the Pope's message to serve those most in need. Pope Francis remained for half an hour, prayed, greeted the people lodged there, and blessed the sisters. Then he continued on to the airport, where he began his 3-hour journey to Bolivia. On Wednesday, Pope Francis transferred to the plurinational state of Bolivia. He was greeted by the president, Evo Morales, at the airport and welcomed by the national anthem, which the people also sang with enthusiasm. The pontiff then addressed those present, reminding them to return to the peaceful spirit of the nation.
Señor Presidente,
Mr. President, dear brothers and sisters, I thank you for your presence. In these days, we can look forward to moments of encounter, dialogue, and the celebration of faith. I am pleased and happy to be here, in a country which calls itself pacifist, a peaceful land, a country which promotes the culture of peace and the right to peace.
The pontiff went on to the presidential palace, where it is common to exchange gift. He received a medal, and then the president Morales presented Pope Francis with a communist crucifix, a carving of Christ crucified on a hammer and a sickle. In response, the Pope appeared to say, "This is not okay," or "I didn't know," while shaking his head. Many voices accused Morales of trying to politicize the Pope's visit. Morales is head of Bolivia's Movement for Socialism party. Since coming to power in 2006, Morales has frequently sparred with the Bolivian bishops.
Welcome back. This is Vaticano.
One of the most anticipated events was Mass in the Christ the Redeemer Square. Referencing the Gospel, he spoke about the three most important words of Christ to his disciples.
Una actitud en tres palabras.
What he does can be summed up in three words. He takes a little bread and some fish, he blesses them, and then gives them to his disciples to share with the crowd. Taking. This is the starting point. Jesus takes his own and their lives very seriously. Blessing, Jesus takes what is given him and blesses his heavenly Father. Giving. With Jesus, there can be no taking, which is not a blessing, and no blessing, which is not also a giving.
No existe una bendición que no sea una entrega.
In the afternoon, the Pope took time to meet with priests and religious from Bolivia. Large crowds of consecrated men and women came together to share this moment with the Pope. Some representatives shared their vocational stories. The Pope gave those gathered some advice, then asked them to remember Blessed Nazaria Ignacia di Santa Teresa de Jesus. The Blessed had cared for the aged and the hungry and founded a women's trade union, while also running homes for orphan children and hospitals for wounded soldiers. The cordial meeting ended with a chanting of the Salve Regina. Then the pontiff went on to his most daring visit of the trip, the Palma Sola prison village. Palma Sola is Bolivia's largest and most overcrowded prison. It holds as many as 5,000 prisoners and their families. While the perimeter of Palma Sola is secured by guards, most of the interior functions as a small town with its own economy. Riots are frequent, the most devastating having been in August 2013, in which 31 people were killed. Pope Francis was received in a field in the men's prison block, where a special tent was set up in the colors of the Vatican, yellow and white. The Pope listened to witnesses of inmates. He spoke words of encouragement to the inmates and also words admonishing to the guards.
It is your responsibility to raise up, not to put down, to restore dignity and not to humiliate, to encourage and not to inflict hardship. This means putting aside a mentality which sees people as good or bad, and instead trying to focus on helping others. And the mindset of wanting to help each person will also save you from every form of corruption and will improve conditions for everyone. In so doing, it will give us dignity, motivate us, and make us all better people.
Then Pope Francis asked for a moment of silent prayer.
Gracias.
After this intense visit, the Pope made his way to the airport to leave for the third and last country of his journey, Paraguay. It was probably the most highly anticipated airplane of the year, Pope Francis Alitalia Flight 330. On Friday at 3 p.m. local time, Pope Francis landed on the international airport Silvio Petrosi of Asunción in Paraguay. Despite the rain, Pope Francis was happy when he left the plane. He was received by President Horacio Cartes and the chanting of a children's choir. After the serenade, there was another performance. Traditional dances, along with 3 processional statues represented by real people in costume. Pope Francis was received with open arms, literally, as a group of girls stormed at him to hug him. The pontiff made his way to the monumental presidential palace that was adorned for the occasion with a flag of Paraguay and the Vatican. The president addressed words to Francis. Then the pontiff expressed his joy about the warm welcoming.
It is not hard to feel at home in so welcoming a land. Paraguay is known as the heart of America, not only because of its geographical location, but also because of the warmth of its hospitality and the friendliness of her people. Mr. President, dear friends, in the name of my brothers, the bishops of Paraguay, I also wish to assure you of the commitment and cooperation of the Catholic Church in the common effort to build a just and inclusive society where each person can live in peace and harmony.
Pope Francis turned towards the most weak of society. First, by visiting a pediatric hospital in the capital, he spent about 30 minutes talking to the children on the inside, while countless Paraguayans waiting in front of the building to get a glimpse of him when exiting. The Pope then went on to celebrate Mass at the National Shrine of Our Lady of Cacupe. The Paraguayan women were in the center of attention here, when Pope Francis spoke about their importance in rebuilding the society after the War of Independence. The conflict claimed over 90% of its population and resulted in an 8-to-1 ratio of women to men. A beautiful moment of communion with the country's clergy and religious was the celebration of Vespers in the late afternoon in the Metropolitan Cathedral of the Assumption. He said Paraguay's Metropolitan Cathedral, too, is symbolic of the Church at large. This cathedral symbolizes the Church and each of us. At times, storms from without and within force us to tear down what has been built and to begin again, but always with a hope given to us by God. Close to 1 million people joined their Pope for Mass in the park of New Guazú. Artist Coqui Ruiz designed an altar and a stage which was made of coconuts, corn, and other plants and vegetables. The fruits of the earth and the expressions of local culture were evident at the Mass, with its prayers in Guarani, a native language, and with a variety of traditional hymns and percussion-punctuated songs. Pope Francis explained that the core of mission is not planning, but being welcoming.
How often we think that mission is based on projects or programs. Imagine how many times evangelization needed thousands of strategies, tactics, maneuvers, tricks, people thinking about the basis of our arguments. Today, the Lord tells us very clearly, the logic of the gospel is not convinced by the arguments, by strategies, by tactics, by simply learning to receive, to be welcoming.
Near the end of his trip, Pope Francis met with a group of young people. The Pope was then posed with 5 questions from a young person, a native Paraguayan, a peasant woman, a businesswoman, and the National Development Minister. This was his last meeting. Afterwards, he continued on to the airport, where he was bid farewell by the president and the bishops. Francis' first tour of Spanish-speaking South America, since the Argentine-born priest became Pope in 2013, thus came to an end. But he will be back in America, next time in North America, in September, for the World Meeting of Families.
Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
Last year, the Sistine Chapel received a technological makeover. A new, unique air conditioning system makes sure that the millennial masterpiece of Michelangelo remains in the best shape. And an LED light system ensures that the tourists and pilgrims get the best view of it as well. This year, another high-tech addition was given to the Vatican. The so-called Quanta system lasers were donated to the museums for restorations. Others will go to South America to help in medical facilities.
Thanks to the Quanta system, the restorators of the Vatican can use these lasers for the cleaning of artworks that are extremely efficacious. They are of the newest generation. It is an important acquisition for the work of our co-workers.
The lasers were presented in the Pinacoteca of the Vatican museums, but the lasers are not just given to the museum, but actually will also be donated to help in the medical field.
It is science that puts itself to the service of the person, to the service of the weakest persons. These instruments are used firstly in the field of science, of medicine, then also in restoration works. I personally am very grateful and very happy to see some of these instruments go to Latin America, to poor countries, where there is really a need to bring these new technologies in the service of the sick.
Pope Francis repeatedly calls us to help the poor. This initiative does just that.
Pope Francis is aware of this initiative and is very happy about it. Also because the Quanta system gives away lasers, very nice ones, for some hospitals in South America, to Latin America. And obviously, as you know, Pope Francis has his heart set on his land.
The hospitals where the lasers will be sent still remain to be chosen. The Inquisition, for many a dark and sinister chapter in the history of the Church. But what really happened, and how were people really being treated? Was it only torture and death? A new film in the making wants to shed light on this seemingly ominous period in Church history.
We're here in Rome to film the Rome sequence of the Inquisition series. This is a follow-up to the Crusades we did last year, which was to dispel those black legends of the Crusades. So now we're working on one on the Inquisition, which is also a long black legend.
Other films of the Inquisition already exist, but are they accurate?
There are many very well-made films, very professionally made. They are superb eye candy, if you like, but they are basically a pack of lies. They don't actually tell the truth. So we were charged to tell it from the Catholic side. This is our history, after all. We get people in the secular media talking about our history, and they're not sympathetic. So what we're doing, we're looking at the Crusades, we're looking at the Inquisition from a Catholic point of view. We're telling the truth. Bad things happen. Bad things happen throughout history to all people. We have all got a fallen nature, but it is our job, if you like, to go through this passage, this pilgrimage of life, to find the truth and to find our way to God. And this is what the Crusades and the Inquisition projects are trying to do. We're trying to tell the truth about the past.
Writer and director Stefano Mazzeo wants his film to shed better light on the history of the Inquisition as a service for truth, but also in an entertaining fashion.
I think it is very important because it's used by a big stick by the secular media in order to disparage the Catholic Church and therefore saying everything about the Catholic Church is wrong, you know, because of the Inquisition. And this is what the Inquisition was and is, you know, but they're not telling the truth. What they're telling is their version of it and leaving out the truth behind the Inquisition. I like to make these documentaries as entertaining as possible. It's important when getting the message across to give them the visuals. I think you need the visuals. It's a learning thing. It's like being in class. You learn better when your teacher is articulate and they also use good visuals. Action.
Once finished, the film will be shown on EWTN and will also be available online.
Hopefully the Inquisition series will be shown like the Crusades was on EWTN. There's also been a lot of interest outside of EWTN. I mean, Lux, our partners, show it on their channel. They dub it into Slovak. Also, there's a German version being made and also a Spanish version being made of the Crusades. The Inquisition will be similar. It'll be shown on the web. when it's broadcast live, it'll be also shown on the web, so people can tune into EWTN on the web and download it and see it.
For a future project, he opts for another hot topic, the Reformation.